Hello. Test.
Is this on?
Are these on now? Can you guys hear us? Good. Excellent. Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing today?
Hi, Lobos.
That's so welcoming. Welcome to TwitchCon 2016, and specifically the You Died Dark Souls panel. I've been wanting to do this, and I've talked to some of these guys before, some sort of like event, and this is what I thought up. And so here we are to talk about Dark Souls. Who in this audience has never played a Dark Souls game, or Demon Souls, or Bloodborne? Okay, all right. Well, you guys have no excuse because you should have gotten one of these, which is a copy of a key for PC Dark Souls, so you can die a lot and have fun with it. So, just as a warning, there is potentially going to be some spoilery discussion. Not something in specific that we're not going to spoil anything that's like coming out. I'm just saying we're going to talk about content of the games and all that. So if you haven't played it before, just earmuffs. So I'm LobosJR. If you did not know, I have done speed runs, challenge runs of Dark Souls, and all that. And I brought all these fine folk who are also Dark Souls content creators. Why don't we go down, starting over here?
Hi. I'm Man of MANvsGAME. You would know me from, yeah. Give me a follow. I'm an up-and-comer. But I'm more of a variety streamer who began to specialize in Souls games because of my love of them. They are definitely my favorite series of games ever made. I can say without a doubt that, well, if we could talk Bloodborne a little bit as well.
Of course.
Yeah, Bloodborne is my favorite game of all time. I had to kind of stop playing Souls for a while to get back to the variety streamer status. Anyway, this is going on too long. I'm MANvsGAME.
Is this thing on? Ooh, it is. Wow, so many people here. Thank you all for showing up. I'm Elajjaz, or Elajjaz, as most people like to call me. It is Elajjaz, though. The J is silent. And I mainly specialize in speedrunning the games. I've been doing it since April 2013. So I've been doing Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, all of them. And also a little bit of PvP here and there. So that's what I do.
Hello? Yeah, okay. I'm Peeve. I mainly just do Dark Souls, Soulsborne, PvP. That's about all there is to it.
Hello? Oh, I'm Jen. I've been streaming Dark Souls games for about 2.5 years, I think. And I mainly just PvP challenge runs here and there. So thank you guys for coming. You guys are awesome.
Hello? Oh. Yo. Wow, there's so many people here. There's even people waiting in the back that didn't get seats. So I'm Ty. I am all about the PvP. So as much as these guys are very good at all the PvE aspects, I fell in love with killing other players. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started my stream in the first like 2 or 3 years, just Dark Souls exclusively. And then I dabbled in things like racing wheel PvP in Dark Souls and all sorts of bizarre shit like that. But can I say things like, can I say shit?
It's an adult panel.
Sorry, I've never done this.
You did it already, so.
But yeah, so I'm like 95% PvP only, and then, yeah, so cool.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks to these guys for showing up and being willing to do this with me. I'd like to give a shout out real quick to David and Dimitri at Bandai Namco. They give us all these wonderful keys for you lovely people to have and go play. And as far as the format of this, we're going to talk for a little while, and then we're going to do some Q&A if you have questions. And David might have some more little treats for the people that come up and ask questions. So the Souls games, if you're unaware, started out with Demon Souls, very like cult following, and then Dark Souls 1 came out. Demon Souls was actually not very popular in Japan when it first came out. Came over to the West and kind of suddenly started catching fire over here. Dark Souls came out, that accentuated even more, and then now it's kind of exploded to what it is today. And there's a lot of really unique like content creators making all sorts of awesome stuff for Dark Souls, like art and like music covers and streams and really dumb challenge runs and all that kind of stuff. It's really a wonderful thing. So I wanted to like have a panel where we could talk about kind of the unique aspects of streaming Souls and like what that entails and what kind of unique problems you run into. But also we're probably just going to casually talk about Dark Souls too. So. So specifically about streaming them, as far as I want to ask kind of some questions to us that we can kind of discuss and talk about. But first experiences streaming Dark Souls. My first time, I had never played a Souls game, obviously, and I wasn't like really big into streaming at the time. So some friends came over and had me, play Dark Souls and stream it, and I was like, okay, whatever. And you die a lot, and it's really hard, but then you get better, and then that's like the beauty that is Dark Souls. But I don't know if you guys have some unique experiences for streaming Dark Souls.
When I already played it way before I actually streamed it, and the first time I streamed it, I did an all bosses speedrun. But I was like really, really small at this time. I just started out, and this other speedrunner rated me, and I shot up to like 150 viewers when I had like 20, and I just started choking horribly. I died everywhere, all the time. That's my first memory of streaming it, actually.
The time that I knew that Dark Souls was like a thing that I wanted to keep doing was when I did blindfolded Dark Souls. It was not a good idea, but it was a lot of fun, and I had a friend of mine who also speedran the game in person, just guiding me vocally, and it was really dumb, but it was a really interesting experience, and it like caught fire, and people were like, what other challenge runs are you going to do? And I'm like, that one.
You managed to kill someone in PvP blindfolded.
There is a highlight of me killing somebody in PvP blindfolded. To be fair, it's dark bead, so that doesn't really count, but... shots fired? I don't know. Whatever. It counts. It counts, yeah. So, as the Souls games have come out, they come out a little more frequently since, Dark Souls and Demon Souls. It's been increasingly, for me at least, important to stay spoiler-free from the content, because that's like kind of the beauty. You explore, you spend all your time playing the Souls games and just exploring every nook and cranny and figuring it out all for yourself, and then later, after you've completed it, you like talk to your friends, and you're like, whoa, how did you experience this and all that stuff? So I have a question to pose to the panel again. How do you guys deal with spoilers, and like what unique problems have arisen from that?
Wait, so you're telling me there's more than one area in Dark Souls? Because like I spend hundreds of hours in one spot killing players and finding bad guys.
Right.
So like, I think it's important to understand that the difference, what drew me to Dark Souls as opposed to a lot of other games is most PvP in video games is handled. You join a lobby and you wait for it to fill up, and then you queue up the game, and everyone, it's very structured. But what's the beauty of the Souls games is there's invasions. So you're playing along in your little single-player world, and then suddenly it's like, X Ninja XX 360 no scope has invaded you, and you're like, holy shit, what do you mean? Like I was focused on like the extremely hard PvE aspect, but now there's this player that is human and potentially way better than me, and they've come to kind of ruin my party. And that's the first time you get invaded in a Souls game is the one that determines whether or not, in my opinion, you stay with it. Because you will die horribly, but then you're like, I want to do what that guy did. And I think, I think there's a duality to the Souls game that's really important. There's like, the bosses and the speed runs and the extreme difficulty, but there's also the fact that like, every time someone kicks your door down in Dark Souls, you never know what to expect. And there's the potential they could be hacking, there's the potential like a dude with a giant head could come in and, so... But in some ways, there's like a beauty to that you don't see in other video games, where it's like, queue up in the lobby for the 80th time today, and you know what to expect. So,
and there's kind of a very unique aspect. I'm sure it's done elsewhere, but the fact that you cannot like communicate like besides through gestures or messages or whatever in the game. So you can't really trash talk, but people come up with really unique ways to do it, just like, spamming their shield or rolling on top of your body or
Throwing
whatever.
dung
Hate mail.
pies at you.
I'm sorry.
Throwing
at
dung
you.
pies, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, going back to the spoiler issue, I don't deal with them very well. Because I really feel like the games, they do harken back to the good old days of gaming when there was no internet. They have a lot of secrets in them, and it really is. The satisfaction I get from playing them is definitely the PvE, portion of progressing through the game, figuring out how, what, the patterns are for the bosses. And I just want to say to all of you here, if you've ever watched my stream and watched me struggle on a boss, but you've withheld telling me how to beat the boss, I want to say thank you so much. Because I know it's difficult to watch somebody struggle on stream. You feel like, I just got to help this guy. He needs it, clearly. But it's like damning knowledge for me. It's like when I see that spoiler in the chat, it's like, ugh, it just saps any chance of having a satisfying victory, because it's like you just spoiled, the battle.
Yeah, knowledge is power, and that goes like twofold in Dark Souls, because it's all about finding out those things for yourself, and if that gets ruined, then the gameplay gets ruined. So, as far as like PvP, we've kind of like organized here. We've got like PvE, kind of like PvP over here. There's the line right here, and I don't go over it and all that. But so let's talk PvP. I like PvP. I don't do it a whole lot. But what kind of unique challenges have you guys experienced with specifically like while you're streaming, like stream sniping or people in chat or anything like that? Like because Twitch will bridge the gap with like not having that communication with people. Like if somebody beats you, are they in chat and they're like, "I beat you," and like showing off and stuff like that? I don't know.
I don't know. All sorts of hackers, and like I've seen people flying. I've seen people change colors. I've seen people break all
down.
my gear and make your frame rate go up like
Yeah, breaking gear is a particularly rude.
teleport you to places where you can't escape and you have to like reload your stuff. Like it's awful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's like also some hacks where people drop things that'll corrupt your save. It's just like, yeah. So I can't even imagine the issues that you guys have to deal with, but so thank you for that.
That's why we play on PS4.
Ah, that's right. That's right. I'm PC for life, but we won't get into that. So no, stop that. So talking about other like unique ways to play Souls games, obviously challenge runs are a thing, and I talked about the blind playthrough. What are some challenges that you have done? I know you did some charity stream where. Go ahead.
Ooh, I've done a lot. It's just like base level, soul level 1, no shield, no healing. There's so many challenge runs you can do, and I've done a lot too. First person mods, really cool. Seeing the Souls universe in first person
and
is
VR
definitely
too.
something interesting. And yeah, like I haven't done as many as you, but I've done my fair share of challenge runs. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to something Man was saying, harkening back to the older games, I think that's a really strong point of the Souls series that really ticks with people, and just the idea that you don't have a lot of information and you're supposed to figure it out, and they're really punishing about it, and you just have to keep trying forever and slam your head against a wall until it gets through. That's a particularly good aspect of the game. So if you haven't played it yet, don't look at any guides. I mean, if you watch videos, that's okay, but you should definitely play it blind if you can.
I mean, when I started playing, I was playing WoW and Minecraft, and someone suggested Dark Souls to me. I had never even held an Xbox controller before, so I was so bad at it. It was not even funny. I mean, if you're sitting in that spot where you're just like, I'm gonna be bad at this, so I don't want to play it, just play it. You'll get good.
Let me tell you, the first time I played a Souls game, it was not on stream. It was Demon Souls, and my roommate actually had it, and he was like, you should give it a shot, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I played for maybe two or 3 hours, and I got to the Red Eye Knight in Boletaria, and spent like an hour and a half trying to kill him, and then I was like, this game's stupid, and I just walked away. And then I didn't touch it for like a year and a half, and then somebody was like, play Dark Souls, and I was like, oh, one of those games.
I had the exact opposite experience. The first time I played Demon Souls, that was my first Souls game. But the Red Eye Knight in Boletaria Castle, that was when I fell in love with it, because it wasn't like a boss fight. You know, you didn't see the life bar show up on the UI. It was just another enemy, and we kept dying on this like just random enemy, and it was like I felt so driven to kill this guy. I was just like, this game is just fucking awesome. Like, because it's not only that, but like the art design as well. But just the challenging aspect of it is what I just adored.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that enable kind of unique styles of gameplay. I mean, obviously I've done a lot of challenge runs, and there's a lot of things you can do with PvP. Just the fact that the game lets you do that is like a really awesome thing, because a lot of games it's like, well, you know, you can't do this unless you've done this quest line or you have this item or this and that. And Dark Souls is just like, yeah, give it a go. Jump into that pit, see what happens. Maybe you'll fight a boss, maybe you'll explode. Who knows?
That's one of the best parts about it. Like, they don't tell you where to go at all. Like, it's very open. A lot of games nowadays, they give you like a waypoint. So go there, do this, go there, do that. They don't do that. So that's what makes me really fall in love with it too.
Yeah, that's good. So let's get into some meaty questions. Let's go down the line, and what is your guys' favorite out of the Soulsborne series? I'll start. Mine's Bloodborne. I think a lot of people know that. Bloodborne, I'm a huge fan of just the mechanics in general, the combat and all that. And Bloodborne, I think, took the Dark Souls formula and kind of reworked it and did some little changes here and there, and just, I love the fast-paced combat and the rally in particular as a mechanic.
I, too, love Bloodborne the best. I would also add that the lore in the game is exquisite. It's the only game that I've ever actually spent time reading like an actual essay, like an examination of the lore. How long is, what is it, Redbeard, the guy who wrote it? The Pale Blood Hunt. It's like it's like a 100+ page essay just examining the lore and breakdown of it, of the game. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't read it. But the lore is incredible. And yeah, Bloodborne is best.
It's so obvious that you guys don't do a lot of PvP, because you bring up Bloodborne and it's like, what PvP
Guilty
is
as
in
charged.
Bloodborne? What? No.
No, I have to say Bloodborne too. It's dark, it's bloody, it's very fast-paced, it's aggressive. And the soundtrack is amazing. It's really, really good. So if you haven't checked out Bloodborne, get a PS4 and check it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say Bloodborne.
Oh my gosh. You know, I'm kind of surprised here. I thought maybe, well, all right.
I would say, I have to split it up, because I would say Bloodborne for PvE, because the atmosphere and it's very immersive, which I'm like all about. But for PvP, I think recently I'm going to have to say Dark Souls 3, because of, as some of you may know, I did a player-run covenant called the Bloodshades, which that has like, it's allowed us to do like co-op invading in Dark Souls 3 through like our Discord server and stuff. And it's just like a whole new experience. Now there's all these like rival player-run covenants like joining in, and it's kind of turned the area after the Pontiff Bonfire into like this faction war kind of a thing, which it's incredible. So I'm gonna say Dark Souls 3 for PvP, Bloodborne for PvE.
My favorite game is Bloodborne as well. I mean, wow. I don't.
Are you just copying everybody? No
I
kidding.
don't particularly like the PvP aspect of it. I think if it comes to PvP, I'm gonna have to say Dark Souls 2, because I have the best memories from that game. Like, it's amazing. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say Bloodborne, because oh my gosh, like what Man said, the story is wonderful. The music is just it's beautiful. That game is just beautiful. I love it.
I thought this was a Dark Souls panel.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Someone had to say it.
I'm also going to have to split mine for PvE and PvP because they're just such different experiences. And yes, for PvE, Bloodborne is amazing. It's like everything they've all mentioned. The art is incredible. It's got such a good mood, and it just feels amazing beating a Bloodborne boss. Like everything just fits together in such a way that almost the Dark Souls games don't even achieve in the same way. But for PvP, like I've probably streamed thousands of hours of Dark Souls 1 PvP, and hands down, like the odysseys we've gone on, like in that game are incredible. Like half-hour invasions where you're struggling so hard to kill the host, and he keeps resummoning like extra guys, and it's just this non-stop like teeter-totter of chaos. And the amount of highlights I got from that period of time, you can't quite get that same experience now because it's been, there aren't the player base is much smaller, but the memories I have from Dark Souls 1 in like my early streaming days are like, there's no way to recreate the stuff that happened. So yeah, Dark Souls 1 for sure for PvP.
I would actually also go with Dark Souls 1 for PvP. Since everybody started giving split decisions, that's my answer, so I just want to fill that. So let's talk about the lore a bit more. That came up. The lore in Dark Souls series is really unique. Like, you have to really try to figure out what the heck is going on. And even the developers are like, I don't know, you figure it out. And just, wow. Just the idea that you have to find NPCs at a certain point, and if you've done something in the game, they're just gone forever. Just like, all right, maybe you spent 150 hours on this playthrough, but try it next time, and you're just like, oh my gosh. But I think that's something that is really, like, people get tied to. They're like, I love the idea that I could miss something and just go back and give this game a whole lot of replayability.
Or we could just watch Vadi video.
That's true. That's true too. I do that. Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of the lore, it's also really interesting that there's a lot of quest lines for specific NPCs that you can totally miss and never never experience them until, and that's where sometimes after your first playthrough, the idea of spoilers and hints is actually beneficial, because I notoriously miss tons of stuff in single-player experiences, and I know going back, people were telling me, like especially in Dark Souls 3, that it's like, this one NPC you can send on like a quest to get stuff several times, and then this guy will like turn you hollow, and then you can there's all these stages to different quests that have really specific requirements that, again, the game doesn't tell you. It's almost random as to whether or not you're going to stumble across what is required. But going through and sometimes, using Twitch chat or using videos or lore or whatever, you end up experiencing like a whole half of the game that you may never have seen. And like Ella mentioned, my mind went blank. You mentioned that. Oh my God.
I don't remember.
What did you mention, Ella?
Hang on.
What?
You mentioned earlier something about not the lore.
Immersion?
Soundtrack?
Oh my! I totally forgot what I was talking about.
They don't tell you where to go?
Yes,
Waypoints?
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, in a lot of games like other action RPGs, they'll have you'll have a quest and it'll say go here, do this, do that, and it's very kind of laid out for you. But Dark Souls is such the opposite of that, and unless you're paying really specific attention to whatever an NPC said or whatever the case is, you will get lost and you will have to find it the hard way, the old way that it used to be before, you could just follow the quest chain and then the exclamation mark above so-and-so's head, and it's like Dark Souls is so the opposite of that, and yeah, I think that's what makes it amazing, but also frustrating if you're someone like me who easily misses everything.
I mean, you can so easily miss like an NPC or something, and like a lot of them have like storylines and stuff like that that'll like completely ruin like something else. And it's a good game to. All the games are really good to just play like a few times so you can see everything.
I think too, on that note, like beyond even just like missing an NPC, it's amazing to me that From Software is bold enough to design entire areas of the game that a lot of times are like the most gorgeous and stunning areas in the game that, yeah, you can just completely miss because they're buried under like, you know, a whole chain of secrets that you have to uncover. Like I'm thinking of Ash Lake in the original Dark Souls. It's like behind not one illusory door, but another one. And once you get down there, it's like this awesome music starts playing, and it's amazing that From Software is able to do that, like to devote so much time to developing huge chunks of the game that a lot of people just will never even see.
In a way, it kind of reminds me of like Super Metroid, if you're familiar. They have like, even Super Metroid, I think to get to like Ridley, you have to like bomb some floor that's like inconspicuous, and that's actually part of the main game. So it's like, again, harkening back to the older games. Let's talk about events and things that you guys have done in Souls games. Yeah, you said Bloodshades. What, can you give some more details on that?
Whenever it comes to Dark Souls 3, a lot of invaders, like PvPers and stuff, they weren't really enjoying it too much because the odds are stacked against them so like ridiculously high that I came up with this idea where we get as many as we can to all invade on bleed-focused builds at a certain soul level in a certain area. And we all show up, and instead of just running in one by one, we wait for backup. So we're basically forcing like team fights in PvP, like 3v3 in one of the highest like gank areas. And it's been insanely successful, and now there's just bloodshades like everywhere. So if you don't like that, I apologize, but sorry, not sorry. But yeah, and people are able to like communicate through our Discord server, like over voice communications and stuff mid-invasion. So you could strategize, meet up, all that stuff. So it's really like changed the whole game in like PvP aspect.
You should also mention that rival covenants are now springing up to challenge your player covenant. Because up until now, there was never really a player-run Dark Souls like club, other than, you know, like a streamer with their fans and everything. But now, like, we see all these characters that are like, you know, well, in this case, Bloodshade Peeve, Bloodshade whatever, and then there's like a rival faction to that, and they all have tags as well, and it ends up being this weird like guild thing. So in a game that is supposed to be about like kind of solo like vigilante invading, you've created like these teams that will help each other in a game that has no infrastructure for that whatsoever. I mean, there's infrastructure to host and summon friends to gank and kill bad guys, but the bad guys, in this case the invaders, have never really had like an organized team in the same way that you've made. And now there's teams that go against that team and then another team, and it's like, I can't imagine what the average player thinks. Like, who the hell are all these bloodshades and like there's all these weird like
it's like the community like taking it into their own hands to kind of fix like an issue. And I think we could do something similar with groups for like Way of the Blue and stuff like that to kind of fix the Dark Moon invasions and stuff. And I think it's really brought a lot of people back to the game.
We should also mention quickly, you mentioned that they're bleed-focused builds. Not everyone here knows what that means, but what's interesting and scumbag about that specifically is bleed.
Efficient, okay.
Bleed is a bar that fills up as you get hit with a bleed weapon or a bleed attack, and once it maxes out, you take a ton of damage. Like, it could be half or more of your health. So what's interesting is that bleed builds, if you're getting hit multiple times by people with bleed weapons, they're sharing that stacking bar. So he's created groups of people that can, even if you're turtling up and backpedaling, you're still getting hit, and they're like helping through heavy armor, and it's like, it's amazingly scumbag in the context of the game, but it's awesome because you can actually help your friends for like the first time ever because you're using bleed. Yeah.
And it's just the invaders are now able to kind of meet on like equal ground with like host and all their summons and stuff. So
even while you're like, you know, rolling around and you have iframes and stuff, it still builds up, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. Well, you can like roll through bleed if it procs. But
you know how to do it, but a lot of people don't know how to do it.
Did you make this guild to combat Ouroboros and his scummy builds?
No, but he recently has started his own like anti-Bloodshade covenant. So yeah, if you go into Pontiff around soul level 140, you might want to either play offline or have some help. because it's kind of rough these days. Or don't Ember. That's a pro tip right there.
DreadedCone, I know you had like the PvP book. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Yeah, so I have a background in web design and app design and stuff like that. So when I started playing Dark Souls and I started streaming it and I started realizing there's ways to like integrate different technologies into the stream, I thought that it would be neat to make meta games on top of the existing game, just because sometimes you get bored and you're like, I've done everything. Let's, the same with you with your challenge runs and stuff. We've found ways to do PvP focused challenge runs. So, I've created apps that will randomize equipment. So the idea is you start with a completely empty character wearing rags holding a sword, and if you win a fight, you load up this app and it gives you a random piece of gear and you add it to your character, and then you can you keep playing, and if you lose there's like penalties and stuff, and it's all just silly meta stuff, but for those of us that play this game to death and it's our favorite game and it's so unique, it gives us like hours and hours of extra gameplay, and then people from your stream start doing it and you start running into other people that are also doing like the rags to riches kind of thing. And then, it's incredible when you can kind of spur the community to like evolve a game in the same way that Peeve mentioned the Bloodshades, like way beyond what even the developer would have thought possible. They make a game and like here's PvP, here's our covenants, here's your clubs you can do, but then it's like, what's interesting about Dark Souls is there's so much more you can expand on, so yeah.
Cool. Let's talk a little about From Software games in general. We know, at least from what we know, like Dark Souls series is kind of coming to a conclusion. How do you guys feel about that in general? Like, I was super satisfied with Dark Souls 3 personally. Like, it's kind of an interesting issue where you want more Souls content, but the more Souls you play, the better you get. And so even if they're pumping out harder content, like unless they get unfair, you're just going to like start doing like really well in the game, and then like those games are kind of going to taper on. Bloodborne did it really well by they changed it up. You can't have a shield. You're not really going to get heavy armor, no poise or anything like that. My point was, we're going back to how do you feel about the Souls series and how it's wrapped up? Do you like that?
I'm all for the Souls series wrapping up. I think, a trilogy is a nice, stopping point. I know I've said in the past that I would play Souls games for as long as they, make them. But it's just as you said, it's part of what makes them so great is the mystique to them, and just not knowing what is going on in the game. And then it is a series where the more you play it, there's no mystery left to it. And that's where I think it's brilliant what they're doing, where they're continuing to make Souls-esque games like Bloodborne, but they tweak the formula a bit with the combat mechanics, an entirely new setting for the game. I'm very excited. Have they said that the new Souls-esque game they're working on, was that like the...
I don't think there's details, but I try and keep low on that. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, don't want to spoil anything. I support the Souls series coming to an end. I think it would be, sad to watch the series just kind of become like a Call of Duty, where they just kind of pump out a new Souls game every year, and they just get more and more predictable, or like you said, more and more unfair. Like a Scholar of the First Sin. Shade. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Just waiting for that first step. I personally, what do you got? If you had to jump into a completely different genre for a Souls game, what would you like to see? Western Souls. I would play Western Souls. I'd play any Souls game, to be fair, but I don't know. Sci-fi Souls?
Yeah, sci-fi Souls sounds cool.
A lot of
sounds
people
good.
mention sci-fi Souls.
Sci-fi Souls. A whole gun system. That would just completely redo. Bloodborne, but I mean, like, as a primary weapon. Like, that could change everything up entirely, so... Who knows? There's an exciting future. They want to do more with that. They're working on several titles, so it should be exciting to see what comes out of that.
Just to touch on that real quick, everybody's saying that like the Souls series is like done, but there was an that face. There was an interview with Miyazaki recently that I actually tweeted out about this. It was he said he's specifically done with Souls games, but he doesn't want to prevent any FromSoft devs from doing another Souls title if they want to. So I don't think it's done, and I think the what is it? The usurpation of fire ending, the hollow ending. I have a feeling that kind of leads it into like a new direction entirely. So I could see them kind of going off of that as like a canon ending and like kind of mixing it up and stuff from here on out. So I don't think it's necessarily done like everyone's saying it is.
Yeah.
But I think Miyazaki's done with it.
The potential is definitely there. I mean, it could be just something that they wrap up in a DLC, but yeah, it could lead who knows where.
That's the way I see it personally. But
I'm gonna miss the games having his touch, though. You know.
Yeah. I feel like it would be hard for him to not kind of like, if they did start working, I'd be like, hey guys, why don't you do this? And just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as Man when he says that that he supports maybe the end of the Dark Souls series, but I want to see more FromSoft games. I want to see that level of finish and those like just mechanics you don't see in other games find their way into other games. I want to see other developers take a page from that book and realize that, like, I know I keep bringing up PvP and it's gonna sound like a broken record, but PvP doesn't have to be lobbies and waiting and queuing and stuff like that. It can be, you know, come to someone else's world, like you know, or just bridge the gap and don't worry about menus and all of this stuff. Like, have a way within the world, within the lore, within like your world to integrate PvP in the same way that the Souls games do it, and I don't really see it in a lot of other games, maybe smaller indie games and stuff, but you don't really see that anymore. And maybe it's because, you know, the Dark Souls style rubs some people the wrong way, certainly, because not everybody likes the idea of having, you know, their door kicked in and a bad guy showing up that's controlled by another player in their, you know, single player world, but it could change your entire perspective on the games you think you like if more games start doing that. If more games start blurring the line to where single player, multiplayer, it's like maybe there's a space in there where you can find a nice balance that's fair but also like really intense and rewarding. Yeah, so like I said, I think that if the Souls games end, that's fine, and I think they're ending on a high note, but I would love to see these kind of like spiritual successors in the style of what the Souls games have kind of made normal, and yeah.
Or Demon Souls 2.
That'll never happen.
If there are any mechanics that you guys, or are there any mechanics that you guys have, while playing Souls, been like, yeah, I want to put those in. Like, that would be really awesome if I could do this. I can't think of anything on the top of my head. Every time I play Souls, I'm like, yeah, he did it right. I'll leave it to him. It's like, you know, I'll leave it to Miyazaki. Miyazaki does it right, and it's good. But
yeah, I feel the same way. I can't really think of any special mechanic I would like to see in any of them. I think they're fine as they are.
yeah, I might say a boss rush would be pretty cool, though.
Yeah, that's
like
a good
if they
idea.
could do like time trial or something like that. Yeah. We've got a little bit more time left. We do want to do some Q&A. So if you guys want to, again, thank you to David Lee from Bandai Namco. He's going to be handing out some things for people that are asking questions. So if you guys want to, you can line up and we can get that going. Oh. If you need a mic, just let me know.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, just so you know, we've got about 23 minutes for questions. So.
One-word answers. Let's do this. One-word answers.
Howdy.
Hello.
Is this on? Yes.
There we go.
So, more of a stream-oriented question in the games themselves. What are some of the challenges that you guys have streaming the Dark Souls games rather than just playing them?
I'll jump in on this one. Spoilers. And because the Dark Souls community, I think more than any other, game fan, like community of gaming fans, they seem to take great joy in sharing their well of knowledge that they have about the game. It's like, oh, actually, did you know that you can go this way? And I totally get that because I also like Tool, the band, and they have a bunch of layers of meaning in their music, and I love explaining what he meant here, and I get it. But yeah, it's super frustrating especially when you're doing like a first blind playthrough of the game, and you see that spoiler in chat, and that's the thing that just bothers me so much about it is that you just can't take it back. You're like, oh, I wish I could forget I read that, but you just can't at that point. Spoilers, definitely for me.
Yeah, spoilers is a. I agree. I agree.
Yes, excellent.
Spoilers is a big thing.
I mean, I've done it for a while, so I'm kind of better at it, but whenever I'm doing like challenge kills and it's like 40-minute fist-only boss kills, trying to not to let the Twitch chat distract me, because sometimes it's like getting close and all I see out of my peripheral is like a bunch of like Franker Z's, and I'm like, just keep playing. And, help me. Yeah, so that, obviously spoilers, I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, definitely spoilers, but I'd also say as like a PvPer, it's really tough to be able to focus on the chat, especially in a higher view count stream, to be able to focus, read what's going on, and not get your ass kicked like constantly. That's the struggle right there.
Yeah, it's tough because sometimes when you're doing a fight, like I've had fights where it's been gone on for like over 30 minutes and stuff, and I have to glance at chat because I don't want to ignore anybody, but and then sometimes I'll die from it, and yeah, and definitely the spoilers, because even sub-only mode and stuff like that doesn't protect you from it,
Similar to spoilers, I'd expand and say backseat gaming, just in general. Like, spoilers are one thing, maybe trying to tell you something you don't know, but the worst is when you have several people telling you why you're doing it wrong. It's like there is no wrong way to do anything, and sometimes screwing something up is a way to make it better in the long run. So that's really the big one, is just like, for people to realize there are multiple ways to play the game. You don't have to min-max, mathematically calculate everything. It's like, sometimes I just want to do something that looks weird and maybe isn't as OP or as strong as, what you came up with. So, yeah, the backseat gaming sometimes is challenging. Sometimes it's very good, but sometimes it can be very frustrating. I think we've all experienced that many times.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What were y'all's reactions whenever you figured out through the Dark Souls community that people were completing the game without taking a single hit?
Oh. Happy hop?
So I commend that. As a challenge runner myself, I don't have the patience for that. I prefer challenges where I'm just crushingly getting defeated over and over and over, and I can keep retrying it. But like to do something for like 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then just have to reset, I'm like, I do speedruns, but it's a little different. Yeah, I'm very impressed, and I like that Miyazaki was like, oh, I think he's lying. Like, I don't think he did that.
On that note, I would say definitely someone y'all should check out is the Urban Orb on YouTube. He did a Dark Souls, well, he did in Demon Souls as well, where he goes through the game and he's a one-shot to everything. I've seen a Hollow like kick him on a ladder and one-shot him. So he goes through and he doesn't use like any kind of quote-unquote OP tactics or anything, and he has to kill every single enemy in the area before progressing. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, and it took him like, I don't know how long to do it, but I'd say definitely check that out, because it's the people who do that kind of stuff, it's crazy.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And back to what Lobo said. If Lobo says he doesn't have the patience to do it, it's a pretty insane thing.
Yeah, agreed.
So like, you guys do your streaming and whatnot, you have your favorite games and stuff, but there's always like that one old game that you go back to, like an old childhood game. What's that game for you guys?
Well, this is this conflicting info. Bloodborne, I think, is now my favorite game of all time. But for the longest time, and until recently, Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past was my first tattoo. It's what I did as a kid, and I could play that game any day. That and Super Metroid are just games that I fall back to all the time.
I definitely go back to Bloodborne. I still grind the Chalice dungeons. A lot of people can't stand the Chalice dungeons because they get repetitive with all the same parts being used, but I still love the random aspect to it. Is that the Happy Hob I see right there? That's Happy Hob right there! There he is! Whoa, brother! I love you. Another game I go back to play from my childhood is just like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the NES. I just love it.
That's a classic.
Wait, the first one?
Yeah. Oh no, I can beat that game.
The
Yeah.
first one?
The first one.
Oh,
like,
wow.
like the shitty one.
That's That's legit. For me, it's Battletoads of all things. Like that was like one of my first, one of the first games I strived to master, I guess, when I was very young. And for some reason, even to this day, going back to Battletoads, it's like one of the most ridiculously hype, exciting, incredibly punishing, difficult experiences. And if you leave it long enough, if you leave it for a few months, you forget everything specific about winning, and it's like a whole challenge all over again. So yeah, Battletoads, hands down. Is
Turbo
my jam.
Tunnel Steering Wheel Challenge?
Sorry?
Turbo Tunnel Steering Wheel Challenge, yeah.
I don't know about that.
For me, I'd say Ninja Gaiden on the NES. It took me like 18 years to actually beat that game. Because it's like you're going through, and the worst part is like you're going through the game, and the stupid little eagle like pops up and swoops at you, and the moment you like turn to the left for half a second, it respawns. That's the worst part about it. But yeah, Ninja Gaiden is that is the toughest crap I've ever played.
Yeah, I think I'd have to say for like pure nostalgia, I'd have to say Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
I tend to go back to that. I never stream it, but I do play it off stream. Well, once a year or something. I just fall back to it. It's such a good game.
I didn't really play like challenging games when I was younger because I don't know, I got really easily frustrated and stuff. So like the Souls series was really like the really difficult stuff that I stuck with. So I guess if I'm just gonna go with nostalgia, I'd just say Chrono Trigger is the game that I'd go back to and stuff like that because I'm all about the RPGs. I love them.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, so I just want to start by saying thanks because I would have never, ever, ever played Dark Souls if it hadn't been for MANvsGAME. Yeah. And you guys are all inspiring, and you've given me a new perspective on PvP because I hate when people kick down my door.
It was my pleasure to influence you.
Thank you very much. The question I have for you is, I tried streaming for a time, and they beat me. Like, the people in chat, they just beat me down. And there's like this Dark Souls bros like thing, like you have to do it this way, or let me come help you, or you're a girl, let me just show you how this is done. And I was just like, fuck you all. Excuse me. So do you have any like words of encouragement or like suggestions? You guys are big, so you've dealt with this a long time, but for little people, like how do you deal with those guys?
You're going to want to flip it into sub-only mode.
Sub-only mode.
Which, if only you could.
Right.
I am probably the worst person on this stage to answer that question because I probably deal with it worse than anyone here.
I've never seen that, but...
Yeah, that's another one of the difficulties of streaming the game because they really are such amazing games. And I've found with games, like, the better they are, the more, like, overzealous the fan base is. And so it's like, yeah, you're playing it wrong, this game, and people go crazy. I just try to remember that it's text on a screen. I don't know. It's like, it's just words. I don't know. It is annoying though.
Yeah, if you have like a friend or some consistent viewers, at least appointing a moderator and telling them exactly how, like what you want not in the chat can help. Just seeing it like disappear, you're like, okay, the message is sent. I don't need to address it. Just keep playing. Do it. Ultimately, it's just about your experience and you sharing that experience with them. So. I mean,
what about you, Jen? You mentioned that like when you first started playing, you had never held an Xbox controller, and I know with Dark Souls 2, like when I like kind of met you and stuff, you were obviously dealing probably with what's being described. What did you do to deal with that?
Well, I can't say that I'm still to this day particularly good at dealing with that stuff. So sometimes I don't really like. I'll just like skim through, and if it looks like it's all negative, I'll just try to, I don't know. There have been times like I did Soul Level 1 for Dark Souls 3, and that was probably the worst I've ever seen my chat. Like, you would have lived if you did this, and you're stupid because you're a girl, and things like that. And you have to just brush it off. I don't know. I'm not really good at dealing with that stuff, but I just try. And I just move forward, and I just like, I'm the one sitting here. I'm playing the game. I know there are a ton of people here that enjoy what I'm doing right now, and I got to think about them and not about the negative people.
Yeah, and I think you need to focus on the long haul as well. I think everything about streaming is the big picture and the long term. Like we've all been streaming for forever, it feels like, and that's important. We've all had days where it's just horrible, and you want to stop. You feel like everyone's against you, but you have to understand, for every one hater or every one person that's trying to tell you to do it better or for whatever reason, there's like 5 lurkers that are like fist pumping, and they want you to succeed, and they're really happy when you do. And it's so hard to remember that, like, let's say you're sitting in a stream with, let's say 100 viewers, and you might be able to count, 7 to 10 people that are actively talking, but you got to remember there's 90 other people sitting there, either you're in the background or they're cheering you on or whatever, and they will, when you succeed, they'll be part of the ones cheering. They won't be there, necessarily defending you against the haters and stuff, but when you finally beat it, you'll notice that, oh, where'd these like 40 other names come from that weren't a part of the people backseat gaming or hating on me? And I think that's really important, is the lurkers are so integral to the stream, the ones who celebrate your victories and maybe don't rub in your defeats. And I think that's really important, like for all streamers, is to remember that, like, yeah, the 10 people talking, like, they may be your most zealous and sometimes your most negative viewers, but the good ones will come out the longer you do it. So you just got to persevere. That's the other part.
Thank you all.
We should probably get some shorter answers.
Yeah, we can do some shorter answers.
Frosty, what do you want?
Mine, unfortunately, is a long one. So one of the most incredible things about the Dark Souls series is probably the gameplay and the combat, and I think a lot of that is because of how varied and unique the individual weapons are, so much so that it's really easy to fall in love with like a specific one. So either throughout the entire series or maybe individual games, are there any weapons that really encompass your kind of experience or that you identify with the most?
Zweihanda!
There it is.
I'm kind of a similar page. Black Knight Greatsword's my favorite weapon. I have like a collection of great swords at home, and so big swords, I like them.
I have to say, the whirly jigsaw from Bloodborne, the pizza cutter. It's basically a chainsaw on a stick. You just go and saw people.
I'd say the penetrating sword from Demon Souls.
Surprise.
Yeah. Shut up, Frosty.
I mean, when I started out, I was a scummy katana user for a little bit, but then, when I started like going into like all the weapons and stuff, I'd say like the sword spear in Dark Souls 3 is really good. I like that one because it can cast and it's really strong. So.
I like the Black Knight halberd. It's just a gorgeous weapon. If you look at it up close, it's one of the most well-designed. It has all these little like fancy engravings and stuff. Not the best weapon from depending on the game. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's a weapon that's been around for almost all the games, and it's amazing. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, Black Knight halberd.
Thanks.
Speaking of which, I lucked into a Black Knight halberd on my first blind run of Dark Souls. It was beautiful. Me too. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Souls and their influence in games, in that, like, a lot of games are coming out with the Souls-esque type stuff. Your Salt and Sanctuary, your Hyper Light Drifter, your Death's Gambit if it ever comes out, games like that. What do you guys think about that influence? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it derivative?
I think it's wonderful. The more games like that, the better. And indie developers will usually go the distance to take risks and stuff like that, where AAA won't. And so you get the more unique gameplay experiences from them. So, I mean, bring them on. I'll play all of them.
Yeah. Sorry. I was gonna say, I'm thinking of Lords of the Fallen, which to me is, it's a good game. Like, I really enjoyed playing it. I think the combat felt good. Maybe it wasn't as good as the Souls series, but just seeing the influence there, like, yeah, I would love to play games that are heavily influenced by the series. So, all for it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Neo. It's basically Samurai Souls. It's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, actually, but it looks
February,
amazing. It's really, really cool. I played the demo of it, and I recommend to check it out. It's really nice.
Cool, thanks.
Hey guys. So there's already been a lot of conversations about how Twitch can influence games, whether it's just from like, how do I build a game that's good for Twitch, all the way up to how do I make Twitch affect my gameplay. For you guys, have you ever thought about like, man, I really wish that From had included this feature, or I really wish like how do you think about features and different things that could be included in games that would augment your experience around a game like Dark Souls? Not to put you on the spot, it's kind of a...
No, that's fine. This isn't exactly a good answer for it, but I did a run where it was, if you've heard of Twitch Plays Dark Souls, basically the chat controls Dark Souls, and then, so I did a run where I was trying to play while chat was trying to play against me and play that. So I mean, it's not necessarily a mechanic I would put in the game, but it's one way to kind of interface with that Twitch and bridge that and make it, there.
I would say there's, because I don't really spend much time thinking about like how the game could be or should be with the Souls games, because they are just really as close to perfection for me with gaming, can get. But there's one thing in Bloodborne, if there were an option to turn off the motion-controlled emote input, that's like the one blight on that otherwise perfect game. Like, just please, From Software, if you're listening, just patch it in. It would be great.
Yeah, the amount of speedruns I've lost to that, it is crazy. You can have like a really good speedrun going, and then your character just stands up and cheers like this. And it's like, and you die, and you have to restart. Yeah, just sits down. That would be nice if they could fix that.
I would say work on the covenant system a bit more. The covenants they have are good. It's just some of them don't even have any rewards, and others are just kind of broken more or less. So I think like more in-depth covenants that that actually hold their weight. Like you think covenant, you think it's like some kind of like bond, but it's something you can just like slap on any of them at any time. I wish it was like more meaningful covenants. That's what I would change.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's try and do rapid fire question round. I think we got 5 minutes left, so we'll try and answer as many as we can.
All right, I'm Kalayan. I'm actually, you probably know me as MG Astropunch. I'm subscribed to all of you, except for you, Ila, which I'm going to change right now.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I have around 4,500 hours in the entire Dark Souls series. I want to know, how many hours do you guys have in the whole series?
In the whole series, I know I have over 4,000 hours speedrunning alone in Dark Souls 1. But like in the entire series, I have no clue. That's all I know.
I'm pretty sure I have over 10,000 hours between all the games.
I'm sure mine is up around there. I mean, I can only say thousands because I don't keep track of anything. I hardly know what day it is most of the time.
I know mine is over at least 5,000. Like Dark Souls 1, I think is like 3,500 plus. So combine the other ones, 5,000-6,000.
I have no clue. I probably would say like in the thousands, but I don't. Yeah, I have no idea.
Peeve was actually the first person to roll over to get to 999 hours on Dark Souls 1 as a streamer or even a YouTuber.
I thought my game like messed up or something.
It stopped at 999.
59, 59, yeah.
Or yes, 59. I have probably 4,000 hours, and it's almost entirely just salty PvP, but I would have it no other way.
Cool, thanks.
All right, well, quick question. It kind of goes for Souls and the Bourne games, but pretty much any games in general. What kind of boss fight kind of reminded you why you loved gaming in general, or kind of reminded you the fact that you loved this game?
Ludwig the Accursed.
Ah, yes, exactly.
I guess for me, I loved, because Demon Souls was my first Souls game. When I got to the Tower Knight, I was like, this is epic as fuck. It was just in the way it had like ads that you had to take care of, and just the scale, the scope, the size of the boss. It just blew my mind, and yeah, Tower Knight.
Yeah, for me it would be Orphan and Bloodborne. I spent 27 hours fighting him with beast claws only on my first encounter, no backstabs or anything. So we built a very special relationship.
I'd probably have to say like Ornstein and Smo.
I was gonna say that. Yeah. No, to this day, Ornstein and Smo are it's the best experience. It sets the stage for how brutal Dark Souls is and what's coming. So, yeah, Smonorn's time for sure.
Yeah, screw those guys.
How's it going?
Pretty good. So we have this guy over here who cares more about the lore and the unwritten story, which a lot of pot smokers do. Yeah. And then we have this guy who just runs past all the enemies, which is pussy stuff where I come from. We have Lobos here. Lobos Jr. is just trying to live up to his father, Lobos, who is better, I imagine. Peeve is tricking people into hugging trolls in the river while he's watching.
I see you again, DP.
Yeah. JenDenise is very pretty, and I hope to get her number after this is over. And DreadedCone just kills people, just stands in the same place and kills people. So here's my desert island question. If one of you could only watch, one of you, who would you watch?
I'll go first. I'm going to have to say Elajjaz, because his gameplay so much reflects what I like to do.
First.
What?
You say his name right first if he's going to be a Desert Island streamer.
No, it's Elajjaz is correct.
Okay, fair enough.
I would have to say, trying to decide between these two right here, because PvP. I'm going to have to go with Ty, because Soulbrand.
Aw, thanks.
Sell
Wait,
out.
because
Wow.
Soulbrand?
Sell out.
Because we're, okay.
Sell out.
Fair enough.
I'm still waiting for my invite.
Sorry.
I would probably have to say Ella too, Elajjaz, because not only is he just like really good at speedrunning them, he's just so charming. He's a sweet person.
All right. Let's try and, I don't know if you guys have comments real quick.
I would watch Lobos because his challenge runs are amazing, and he's always coming up with like crazy ways to play the game. Like I liked your first-person like virtual reality run. You looked like a nerd, and it was great.
That's what I am. All right, this is probably the last question we have time for.
All right. So, with speedrunning, the games have varied a little bit in bug quality. Like, for example, Dark Souls 2 is particularly infamous for allowing you to just hack through walls, basically run through the universe, drop down, use bino boosting to just go extremely fast. So my question is, between all the Souls games, what was your favorite balance as far as speedrunning went? And what would you like to have in a new Souls speedrun?
I'd have to say Dark Souls 1 is probably my favorite when it comes to speedrunning, because it has a really good mixture of hard boss fights, because you use the red Tearstone ring, you have to be below 20% HP and deal a lot more damage, and it has really cool skips and glitches. And as far, like, I don't want games to be too broken, and I don't want them to be completely unbroken either. I'd like to see a mixture of it.
Yeah, I would have to say Dark Souls 1 as well, because at least when I first started doing speedruns, there was a kill and skip, which was one route, but the main route really didn't have a lot of glitches. It was just play good and go fast, so it was fun. Nothing.
I speedran Dark Souls 2
yeah.
for like 2 weeks, and I was like, I don't know how Ella does this.
Okay.
I'll say as a speedrun watcher and not a speedrunner myself, Bloodborne, watching Ella's Bloodborne speedruns was like some of the best hours like I've ever spent. The crushing defeats when you died, but like it was amazing watching those. So I'd say Bloodborne is such a fantastic run to watch if you're like me and you have no hope of ever speedrunning a game ever. So yeah,
Thank you.
It was good.
Okay, guys, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We had a blast. Hope you guys have a really good rest of your TwitchCon. If you have more questions, I'm sure we'll be around in the con. Feel free to come up and say hi to us and everything. Thank you all. Have a good one.